Pine Barrens of New Jersey occupy a vast and silent stretch of land that feels entirely separate from the modern world. Thick forests of pitch pine dominate the landscape, and the sandy soil absorbs the sound of footsteps, making the woods uncomfortably quiet. It is a place where the shadows seem to stretch longer than they should, and the wind whispers through the branches with a voice that sounds almost human. Locals know that venturing too deep into these woods after the sun sets is a foolish endeavor for something ancient, and hungry stalks the darkness. This is not merely a story to frighten children, but a deep-rooted fear that has permeated the region for nearly 3 centuries. The geography of the Pine Barrens is deceptive in its beauty, with endless miles of trees that look exactly the same in every direction. It is incredibly easy to lose one's way among the scrub oaks and cedar swamps, where the water runs dark like tea due to the high iron and tannin content. This isolation has bred a culture of self-reliance and secrecy among the people who have lived there for generations. They are known as Pineys, and they hold the secrets of the forest close to their chests. They know that the rustling in the brush is not always a deer, and the screech in the night is not always an owl. To understand the terror that grips this region, one must look back to the year 1735, a time when the American colonies were still young, and superstition held sway over the minds of the people. In the isolated hamlet of Leeds Point, the sky was pitch black, and a violent storm battered the wooden shingles of a modest home. Inside the house, a woman named Jane Leeds was laboring through a difficult birth. She was surrounded by her 12 other children and a group of midwives who huddled close to the hearth for warmth. The atmosphere was thick with tension, and the howling wind outside seemed to mock the cries of the exhausted mother. Jane Leeds was a woman worn down by the harsh realities of colonial life and the ceaseless demands of a large family. Her husband was a man of little means, and providing for 12 mouths was a struggle that left Jane physically and emotionally drained. As the labor pains intensified, she felt a wave of despair wash over her that was darker than the storm raging outside. In a moment of sheer exhaustion and bitterness, she looked up at the ceiling and uttered a curse that would doom her family and the region forever. She cried out regarding the unborn child, "Let it be a devil." The room went silent as the midwives exchanged fearful glances, but the labor continued, and soon the child was born. At first, it appeared to be a normal and healthy baby boy, and the tension in the room began to dissipate. Jane took the child into her arms, and for a brief moment, it seemed that her curse had gone unheard by the powers of darkness. The midwives smiled and moved to clean the linens, believing the danger had passed. However, the air in the room suddenly grew frigid, and the candles flickered violently, as if suppressed by an unseen weight. The shadows in the corners of the room seemed to detach themselves and creep toward the bed. In a scene of absolute horror, the infant in the arms of Mother Leeds began to change before their very eyes. The soft skin of the baby turned into a coarse and leathery hide covered in dark fur. The small hands elongated into razor-sharp claws, and the feet fused into cloven hooves like those of a goat. The face of the child stretched and contorted, growing a long snout, and eyes that glowed with a malevolent red luminescence. 2 large bat wings sprouted from its back, tearing through the swaddling clothes with a sickening sound. The creature was no longer human, but a monstrosity born of a mother's curse. The beast let out a blood-curdling scream that shattered the windows and sent the midwives scrambling for the door in terror. It thrashed wildly in the small room, knocking over furniture and attacking its own siblings who were frozen in fear. The creature beat its powerful wings and ascended toward the ceiling, hovering above the chaos it had created. With one final screech, it flew up the chimney, destroying the masonry on its way out, and disappeared into the stormy night. The Leeds family was left in ruins, and the legend of the Jersey Devil was unleashed upon the world. For years after that terrifying night, the people of the Pine Barrens reported seeing a strange creature lurking in the swamps and dense woodlands. Livestock would disappear from farms, only to be found days later, mutilated and drained of blood. Children were warned never to stray past the edge of the tree line, and grown men refused to walk alone at night. The entity became known as the Leeds Devil, and its presence hung over the region like a dark cloud. It was said to possess a supernatural speed and a scream that could stop a man's heart cold in his chest. Religious leaders in the area attempted to intervene, hoping to drive the evil spirit away through prayer and ritual. In 1740, a local clergyman conducted an exorcism in an attempt to banish the beast from the Pine Barrens for 100 years. For a time, the sightings seemed to decrease, and an uneasy peace returned to the countryside. However, the creature was merely dormant, waiting for the century to turn so it could reclaim its territory. The woods remained quiet, but the locals knew that the devil was still out there watching and waiting for the right moment to strike. As the 19th century dawned, the sightings began to increase once more, attracting the attention of prominent figures. Commodore Stephen Decatur, a naval hero, visited the Hanover Iron Works to test cannonballs. While on the firing range, he reportedly saw a strange winged creature flying across the sky. Being a man of action, Decatur ordered his men to fire upon the beast. It is said that a cannonball struck the creature directly, yet it continued to fly completely unharmed. This incident cemented the belief that the Jersey Devil was not a creature of flesh and blood, but a supernatural entity impervious to human weapons. Even royalty was not immune to the reach of the winged horror. Joseph Bonaparte, the brother of Napoleon, had fled to America and built a grand estate in Bordentown, near the edge of the Pine Barrens. He frequently hunted in the woods and considered himself a skilled marksman. During one of his hunting trips in the winter, he encountered the beast standing near a frozen stream. He described it as having the head of a horse and the wings of a bat. He froze in terror as the creature stared him down with its glowing red eyes before taking flight and vanishing into the trees. The legend persisted through the decades, but it was in January of 1909 that the terror reached its absolute peak. This period became known as the Phenomenal Week, a time when the creature was seen by thousands of people across the Delaware Valley. It began on a Sunday morning when mysterious tracks were found in the snow. The footprints were cloven hooves, but they were arranged in a single file line, suggesting a bipedal creature. What made the tracks truly impossible was that they went over rooftops and through high fences without breaking stride. Panic began to spread as the newspapers picked up the story and published sensational headlines about the return of the Leeds Devil. On Tuesday of that week, a couple in Philadelphia woke up to the sound of something heavy walking on their roof. They ran outside and saw a large winged creature perched on the chimney, staring down at them. The police were called, but by the time they arrived, the beast was gone, leaving only its strange hoof prints in the snow. The city was on edge, and people began to arm themselves with whatever weapons they could find. The hysteria intensified on Wednesday when a policeman named James Sackville was patrolling the streets of Burlington. As he walked his beat, he saw a winged beast hopping down an alleyway. He drew his revolver and fired several shots at the creature, but it let out a terrible shriek and flew away into the darkness. Sackville described the monster as a winged kangaroo with a horse head and a long rat tail. His report was corroborated by the local postmaster, who had seen the same creature perched on a roof earlier that evening. Reports flooded in from all over New Jersey and Pennsylvania describing encounters that were remarkably consistent. Witnesses spoke of a creature that stood about 4 feet tall, with a wingspan of over 6 feet. It moved with an unnatural gait, sometimes hopping and sometimes flying. The most terrifying aspect reported by all was the eyes, which glowed with an intense internal fire. Schools closed their doors and factories shut down as workers refused to leave their homes. The entire region was paralyzed by the fear of the unknown predator. In Haddonfield, a trolley car filled with passengers was traveling through the woods when the driver slammed on the brakes. Standing on the tracks in front of the trolley was the Jersey Devil. The passengers screamed as the creature hissed at the vehicle and spread its massive wings. The driver blew the whistle and rang the bell in a desperate attempt to scare it off. After a tense standoff, the beast launched itself into the air and flew alongside the trolley for several miles, peering into the windows at the terrified commuters before peeling away into the night. The widespread panic led to the formation of armed posses determined to hunt down and kill the monster. Groups of men with shotguns and hunting dogs scoured the woods of the Pine Barrens, looking for a lair or a nesting ground. The Philadelphia Zoo offered a $10,000 reward for the capture of the creature alive. This bounty attracted bounty hunters and thrill seekers from all over the country, adding to the chaos. Despite the massive manhunt, the creature remained elusive, leaving only tracks and terrified witnesses in its wake. One of the most dramatic encounters occurred at a social club in Camden, where the creature was spotted sitting on a windowsill. The members of the club, panic-stricken, called the police, who arrived to find the beast still there. Officers emptied their guns into the creature, but the bullets seemed to have no effect. The devil simply turned its head, hissed at the officers, and flew straight up into the night sky. This encounter further reinforced the idea that the Jersey Devil could not be killed by conventional means. In the town of West Causwood, the local fire department was called to a disturbance at a residential home. They arrived to find the creature attacking a dog in the backyard. The firemen turned their high-pressure hoses on the beast, hoping to drive it away with the force of the water. The creature was knocked back by the stream, but quickly recovered. It charged at the firemen, snapping its jaws and flapping its wings aggressively. The men retreated in fear, and the creature eventually lost interest and flew off toward the forest, carrying the dog with it. Nelson Evans, a resident of Gloucester, provided one of the most detailed descriptions of the creature during that fateful week. He and his wife watched the beast from their window for 10 minutes as it paced on the roof of their shed. He described it as having a head like a collie dog, a face like a horse, a long neck, wings, about 2 feet long back legs, like a crane, and horse hooves. He noted that it walked on its back legs and held up 2 short front legs with paws. This description became the standard image of the Jersey Devil in the public imagination. As the phenomenal week came to a close, the sightings began to taper off, but the fear remained. The creature had demonstrated that it could go anywhere and strike at anyone. It had visited cities and rural farms alike, respecting no boundaries. The people of the Pine Barrens returned to their daily lives, but the innocence of the region was lost forever. They knew that the creature had not been caught or killed, and that it was likely biding its time in the deep swamps, waiting for the next opportunity to emerge. Scientific explanations were offered in an attempt to calm the public. Professors suggested that the tracks belonged to a large bird or a deformed animal. Some claimed it was a hoax perpetrated by pranksters using stilts and costumes. Others believed it was a sandhill crane that had been blown off course by a storm. However, none of these explanations could account for the sheer number of sightings or the consistent descriptions given by credible witnesses, including police officers and public officials. The locals rejected these scientific theories, knowing in their hearts what they had seen. The legend of the Jersey Devil quieted down for a few years, but it never truly went away. Throughout the 20th century, sporadic sightings continued to keep the fear alive. In 1927, a cab driver was changing a flat tire on a lonely road near Salem when the creature landed on the roof of his car. He abandoned the vehicle and ran to the nearest farmhouse, shaking and unable to speak. When he returned with help, the car roof was covered in deep scratches and dented as if something heavy had jumped on it. In 1951, a 10-year-old boy in Gibbstown encountered the monster while exploring the woods near his home. He described a creature that matched the classic description, dripping with slime and smelling of sulfur. The boy ran home screaming, and his parents found strange footprints in the mud where he had been playing. This incident sparked a new wave of interest in the legend and renewed fears that the devil had returned to claim a new generation of victims. During the 1960s and 70s, campers and hikers in the Pine Barrens reported hearing unearthly screams in the night. These sounds were described as high-pitched and mechanical, unlike any animal known to science. Some campers reported seeing red eyes watching them from just beyond the light of their campfires. In one instance, a group of scouts found their campsite destroyed and their equipment shredded by what appeared to be large claws. The park rangers officially attributed the damage to bears, but the scouts knew better. The legend is also closely tied to the Blue Hole, a mysterious body of water located deep in the woods of Winslow Township. The water is impossibly clear and blue, yet remains cold year-round. Locals believe it is a bottomless pit and a portal to the underworld. It is said that the Jersey Devil uses the Blue Hole as a resting place and a means of travel. Many people refuse to swim there, fearing that they will be pulled down by the creature into the icy depths, never to be seen again. Physical evidence of the creature remains elusive, but cast prints of the strange hooves have been preserved by researchers. These prints often show a cloven hoof that is too large for a deer and shaped differently than a goat. Skeptics argue that these are misidentified tracks or hoaxes, but cryptozoologists point to the stride length and the depth of the impressions as proof of a large bipedal animal. The Pine Barrens are vast enough to hide a population of unknown creatures, and the terrain is difficult for humans to navigate effectively. The psychological toll on the residents of the Pine Barrens is undeniable. The legend has shaped the identity of the region and instilled a wariness of the woods that persists to this day. Parents use the story to keep their children close to home, and adults avoid certain roads after dark. The Jersey Devil is more than just a cryptid. It is a manifestation of the wild and untamable nature of the forest. It represents the fear of the unknown and the belief that there are things in this world that science cannot explain. Today, the Pine Barrens remain much as they were centuries ago, a vast wilderness of sand and pine. The roads are still lonely, and the nights are still dark. Visitors who come looking for the Jersey Devil often leave with a sense of unease, feeling that they were being watched the entire time. The rustling of the leaves and the snapping of twigs take on a sinister meaning in these woods. Whether the creature is real or a product of folklore, the fear it inspires is very real. There are those who say they have heard the beating of leathery wings above the treetops on moonless nights. They claim that the Jersey Devil is immortal, a cursed soul that can never find rest. As long as the Pine Barrens exist, the legend will continue to haunt the imagination of those who dare to enter. If you find yourself driving through the dark woods of southern New Jersey and you see a shadow pass over the moon, do not stop. Keep driving and pray that the winged horror has not chosen you as its next witness.